You're never more exhausted than when you're pregnant. Am I right? So you just want maybe one coffee to get you through the day. But maybe you've heard people say you can't have any coffee during pregnancy. But then you're wondering, well, will one hurt? What about decaf coffees? What about cola? What about tea? And then you end up with a million questions. Well, today on Nourish, I have my friend and colleague and expert leading prenatal dietitian, Elizabeth Hammell, joining us. So for you to learn and listen to the latest evidence on coffee and pregnancy, stay tuned. Liz, well, thank you so much for joining us today on Nourish. Before we get into our topic today, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do?
So I've been a dietitian for around 10 years. I have a private practice working with clients trying to conceive who are pregnant or young children. And it's an area, well, all those are areas I became really passionate about when I was going through that process. So trying to have a baby and then being pregnant and having young children to feed. So it's something I really love helping other people with.
Fantastic. So today we're going to delve into the topic of coffee and caffeine. And we obviously get decaf coffee as well. And we find caffeine in other foods and beverages. So I really want to ask you, which is the problem, the coffee or the caffeine?
So the problem is actually the caffeine itself, not the coffee. And as you said, caffeine's found in a lot of different things.
Yep. And so, well, what is actually the risk of consuming too much caffeine?
Unfortunately, there is a risk to consuming too much. So somewhere over the 200 or 300 milligrams per day, and we start increasing the risk of miscarriage and also having a baby with a low birth weight.
Right. So decaf coffee, it doesn't have any caffeine in it, does it? So is it safe?
Decaffeinated coffee is perfectly safe to have. It does have a very tiny amount of caffeine, but it's around 3 milligrams per teaspoon. So you'd have to be drinking, up to 100 cups of tea per day to have a problem.
Anybody who's drinking 100 cups of decaf a day? Yes, right. You've got other problems. So, dear. So how much caffeine does coffee have, and how many coffees then can we actually have a day during pregnancy?
So it depends on what type of coffee you're drinking. So a teaspoon of instant coffee contains around 60 milligrams of caffeine. So you could be drinking, 3-4 cups of that a day. Percolated coffee contains around 100 milligrams per cup. And a shot of espresso coffee, so that's what you find in your cappuccinos and lattes, right, that contains around 90 milligrams.
Okay.
But just one thing to remember is that if you order a regular or a large, you could be getting 2 to 3 shots of coffee per cup.
Right.
So it's a good idea just to check how much is going in, and you can always ask them to cut it back if you need to.
Yeah, okay. So essentially we're saying that 2 to 3 cups of coffee, small cups of coffee a day as a maximum, it would be what you'd be recommending.
That would be perfectly fine.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, I find that a lot of my pregnant clients tend to develop a taste aversion for coffee during their pregnancy anyway. Is that something that you find? And have you done any research into the reason why?
It's definitely something I find. It's one of the most common reported taste aversions. It's up there sort of in the top 10. It's thought to be related to the hormonal changes. So rising HCG levels in early pregnancy are often associated with nausea, taste changes, taste aversions, appetite changes, those sorts of things.
Fantastic. So yeah, isn't it I just think it's miraculous the way that our bodies change to protect us against things that are that we shouldn't be doing naturally. Yeah, just incredible. So what other foods and beverages contain caffeine that we might need to be aware of?
Well, it is important to be aware of them just because the amount of caffeine you consume can add up through the day if you're getting it from lots of different little sources. So things like energy drinks can contain up to 110 milligrams in a serve. Cola soft drinks around 40 milligrams a serve. Tea as well, so black tea has around 50 milligrams, green tea has around 30 milligrams. Can also be found in chocolate, so about 60 grams of chocolate will contain somewhere between 30 or 40 milligrams with milk or dark.
Right.
And it can also be found in medications and supplements and things as well.
Okay, so maybe more like 1 to 2 cups of coffee, small cups of coffee a day, and then a little bit of tea or a little bit of chocolate. Yeah, okay, might be a better idea. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Liz. Wasn't it fantastic to have her advice with us? Now, if you want to get in contact with Liz, we'll put her contact details in our show notes below, so just have a peek there. So it seems that, as we said, a cup or 2 of coffee a day is quite safe during pregnancy, but if you are somebody who drinks multiple cups a day, it's really worth cutting down to help to reduce your risk of miscarriage during pregnancy. Now, we've got some other tips for you coming up on our weekly basis. So if you are pregnant, I highly encourage you to hit the subscribe button so that you can get our tips every week during your pregnancy. And you might also like to download our free pregnancy meal plan. So if you just go to melaniemcgrice.com/pregnancy, and that will give you our free pregnancy meal plan, which I'm sure that you'll find a great blessing for you. And if you do think that this video will be helpful for any of your friends, make sure that you forward it on to them as well. Well, have a great week, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you again soon on Nourish. You did a great job.
Thanks. This is really not my thing.
But you should be really proud. Are you proud of what you've just done? Of how good a job you did? Because I was
wait till I see the video.
I was very impressed.
Yeah,
I think you did a great job. You brought in a whole lot of stats and it just flowed, and yeah, it was great. You should be really proud.
Thank you.